From Social Prosperity Partners, this is Community Catalysts. Welcome to Community Catalysts, the podcast that examines the qualities of community leadership and the many paths and forms it can take. I'm your host, Matt Lehrman. Whether you're joining us for the first time or are one of our devoted listeners, welcome to a community of leaders committed to learning from each other how to inspire change, foster collaboration, and build stronger communities. Don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is sponsored by RELI, the Regional Elected Leaders Initiative at the Schar School of Policy and Government at George Mason University. I'm grateful for their support in highlighting the innovative public sector leadership that's transforming Northern Virginia. Today, my guest is Robert Lazaro, Executive Director of the Northern Virginia Regional Commission. Under Robert's leadership, NVRC supports 13 local governments representing over 2.5 million residents and a $276 billion economy. We'll explore his leadership journey, the challenges of communicating regional impact, and the power of collaboration in achieving transformative results. Robert Lazaro, welcome to Community Catalysts.
Hey, Matt, thanks. Good to see you, and thanks for having me. Appreciate having the opportunity to talk about the great work our team at NVRC does for the region.
Thanks. And let's just acknowledge, we're recording this on Monday morning, January 6th. So first off, Happy New Year. And you were just telling me, big snowstorm coming through the metro region right now.
One of the largest in the last couple of years, 8 to 10 inches, depending on where you are. So all the school children have an extra day on their holiday break. So far, I would imagine that tomorrow it could be a similar circumstance.
It's a perfect day to record a podcast, isn't it?
It certainly is, and happy to do so.
So, Robert, let's just dive right into it. There is a word that keeps appearing in all of the episodes that we've done where we've talked about Northern Virginia. It's the word collaboration, and collaboration is kind of at the core of what NVRC is all about. Can I just ask you, big level, when we talk about collaboration, what does that mean to you? What is the definition of collaboration as you see it?
I think it's really straightforward and simple, is working together to achieve a positive result for the communities we serve. Regional commissions were created by the General Assembly over 50 years ago with the whole thought of people, local governments working together for the betterment of the region that they live in. NVRC is one of 21 planning districts throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. We're the largest in terms of population and also of GDP. But we can learn from a lot of our other colleagues throughout the Commonwealth and the things that they do really well that we could do. We can look at them for examples.
How do you distinguish between the word collaboration and collective? There are a lot of people who use the word collective. It rubs me wrong, but I'm wondering if it has any connotations for you.
I know collective could have a negative connotation to it from a political sense, but collaboration about working together, because some of our localities may not share the same agendas as our locals, but where we do work together collaboratively, we make positive change happen in our region. So our membership goes from the largest county in Virginia, which is Fairfax County, over 1.2 million people, to the town of Dumfries, which is a little bit over 5,000 or 6,000 people. So what's good for one may not work for the other, but together we work in areas of common interest to make a positive difference.
I always make the distinction that collaborative is voluntary. You collaborate when it's in your interests, when you feel that you want to be part of a greater whole. Collective makes it sound like the totality is the most important thing and that somehow we are subservient to that. Does that make sense from your perspective?
That makes a lot of sense to me. We're in Virginia, planning districts. We do not have the ability to make our local governments do anything. It's not, we cannot go to them and say, you're going to do this. we take our work plan, which is derived from the 24 members of our commission that represent the 13 different localities. We work across jurisdictions, across political parties to achieve a common goal. And so we're not in the mandate business. Our work is to see where there's commonality of purpose and goals and work to achieve them.
So help us understand NVRC. What's the funding source? What's the authorization? What's the power that you have to facilitate collaboration?
Well, that's what, I mean, the power is our commissioners. I mean, the NVRC and the planning districts were created more than 50 years ago by the General Assembly, the state legislature here in Virginia, with a broad agenda. Some of our planning districts provide all of the GIS services for their local governments because they're in very rural areas. It's very expensive to have a GIS system, et cetera. So they do that kind of work. Our work has changed over time based upon budget, funding source, et cetera. Our largest funding source is our local governments. They pay on a per capita, a dues based on a per capita basis. So obviously Fairfax the largest, Dumfries the smallest. And then we are a grant-driven organization. So a lot of our work is relative to programs that are funded by the state or federal government. So for instance, for more than 30 years, we have been operating on behalf of the state and the federal government, the Ryan White HIV/AIDS program. So instead of having 13 different bureaucracies in Northern Virginia, we're the sole point of contact. The monies come to us, and then we parse them out to the social agencies that assist people with HIV/AIDS. And we have a small program called HOPWA, Housing Opportunities for People with AIDS. So we try to bring a economy of scale to some of the programs. So each locality is not trying to establish their own program, but by working collaboratively together, we're able to do so on behalf of the 2.5 million people that live here.
Robert, there's something that a lot of people don't understand about the community of Northern Virginia. First off, the growth of population has just been tremendous over the last 20, 30 years, but also the number of cities that are also counties and districts that aren't municipalities. Can you help someone understand what is the dynamic of municipal entities that you engage with?
So we have 13 local entities. 4 of them are independent cities, so they do not belong to a county. Unlike in some places, I'm a native New Yorker. The city of Glen Cove is in Nassau County. In the city of Glen Cove, you would vote for the county executive. Here, if you're in a city, you're an independent city. You do not vote for any of the county officials whatsoever. And then we have towns and we have counties. And the cities, Virginia is unique. There are only, I think, 2 other states that have independent cities in the entire country. And so they typically have their own social services, community services boards. They run their own school systems. They have their own police departments, et cetera. Some of them will contract with a larger county for certain services like courts, the sheriffs, et cetera. But they are independently elected officials and follow their own agendas. They have their own school boards, et cetera.
Why does that make sense in Northern Virginia? It's so unusual for the rest of the country.
That is how the Commonwealth had set up local government. I cannot give you a better answer than that. Our local governments have limited power as a Dillon rule state. So unless the state General Assembly says you have the power to do something, you cannot do it, unlike a strong home rule state like New York State, where if the local government in Nassau County, where I worked a long time ago, said, hey, we want to ban smoking in restaurants, they could do that without getting permission from the state legislature. Here in Virginia, when that whole issue came up, you had to go to the General Assembly to give the local governments the permission to be able to say no smoking in restaurants. So it's unique to us, but we have a lot less local governments than in New York. There are no independent school districts. So Nassau County, you had the county, the towns, and the cities, but then you had independent school systems. So you had 20 or 30 school districts. Here, the county or the city run their own school systems. So there's a lot of economy of scale. There's only one superintendent in Fairfax as opposed to in Nassau County, which is similar in size. Well, you'll have 20 or 25 different superintendents.
Are you saying that there's actually inefficiency? There's a way of working through this that actually is not like herding cats?
There's a lot of efficiency. I mean, and a lot of flexibility too. I mean, if you have a particular school that may not be doing as well as you would like, you can move teachers in and around from the county, as opposed to, okay, we're really in a terrible situation and we don't know what to do about it. So there's a lot more flexibility and collaboration just within each entity.
So we'll come back. I want to ask you more about the work of NVRC and how you do it. But before we get into the substance of that, I want to ask a bit about you. What is your path? How did you get to a position of leadership?
I consider myself really blessed. I was senior at St. John's University in New York, and I needed a 6-credit internship to finish my degree in public administration. And I applied to a number of different places, and my state senator at the time said, "Hey, yes." And I went to work for him. At the end of the semester, they said, "Hey, we like what you did. Would you like to stay?" And I worked there. Unfortunately, he passed away. I went to work then for the town of North Hempstead in a number of different roles. Went on to work for the county executive, the county legislature. Did a crazy thing. We decided to up and move and came to Virginia. I had the opportunity to work for Scott York, chairman of the Loudon board. Worked for Inova Health System, and then came to NVRC in 2014 as Director of Sustainability and Energy Policy, and then later as Executive Director. And I was fortunate to serve my community 2 years on the town council and 8 years as mayor, which gave me the opportunity to serve on NVRC as a commissioner and to meet a really talented group of men and women who were leading their communities.
Robert, as we were preparing for our conversation today, I asked you if there was a particular early experience on your journey to leadership that impacted you deeply. And you told me you had an experience when you were working for the Long Island Railroad. Can I ask you to share that story?
Sure. It's hard to believe, but it's almost 22 years ago, December 7th, 1993, a person got on board a Long Island Railroad train in Penn Station, and between New Hyde Park and Maryland Avenue, pulled out a weapon and murdered 6 people, wounded 21 others. It was horrendous. My boss at the time and the president of the railroad, we all met at that station. The next day, Mr. Hoppy, who unfortunately passed away, he and I accompanied him. He walked that entire train, the same train that leaves Penn Station to 533 to Hicksville. And he walked that train and spoke to every commuter that wanted to speak to him about what happened the day before, some who were on the train. And I think that took an incredible amount of courage because you didn't know what was going to happen, what people's reaction was. But Chuck Hoppy was his name, and Chuck saw it as an important part of leadership to be standing up and letting people know that he was hurting, that he cared about them, and if people had questions about what the railroad was doing to help those families had lost loved ones or people who were injured as part of it, and insecurity efforts as well. So I see that as a real profiling courage because it was a tough day on that train. There were a lot of people who teared up when they saw Chuck, and they appreciated it.
You were with him as he walked through the train?
Yeah, the whole train. It was incredible.
Robert, what's a lesson that you take away personally from that experience that has stuck with you?
You have to stand up when it's tough times. It's, having served in local elected office, it's nice to go to the great things and cut the ribbons or other celebrations, but you have to show up at the difficult times as well and let folks that know that you're with them and you share their concerns. And they may not be happy with you, and I get it. but it's really important. If you want the job, you got to do the job. It's not just all glad handing and happy stuff.
It makes me wonder, when someone wins office for city council or for mayor or county supervisor or something, does someone actually offer training to them in advance for how to respond in a tragic situation? Or when you were mayor, was it just expected that if a situation happened, that you would somehow know what to do in the moment?
There is no training. We were a small town, 6 council members, the mayor, maybe a staff of 60 or 70. We didn't have a public information officer or public relations firm. The gray hair helped me out a little bit, being seasoned in understanding of what happened 20 years prior at the Long Island Railroad, helped me communicate what we could communicate at the time of the event. But there is not a lot. Larger organizations obviously have a lot larger access to public information, public relations, staff. It was that learning experience over the years of serving in local government or working in local government gave me the ability to work with our town manager to craft a statement, et cetera, but you have to be present. It's not for the fame or the glory. There's a lot of nitty-gritty detail that goes into local government. And you have to be present at the moment and provide a leadership, 24/7. It was liberating after 10 years in elected office. I could go out on a Saturday and not have to worry about shaving.
Is that it, though? Obviously, not the money, not the fame, not the power. It's being present to help your community make important decisions.
And we made difficult decisions, made some people happy. So, anytime you make a decision, you make someone happy, you make someone unhappy. And you have to realize that. I never thought in 10 years that I would get 100% of the vote. Even when I ran unopposed, I didn't get 100% of the vote. There was one year Mickey Mouse got a number of write-in votes. But, at the end of the day, try to leave when you started and when you leave, a better place. And I'm very proud of what we did in Purcellville, smallest AAA rated community in Virginia, put more land into conservation easement than any town in the Commonwealth of Virginia, grew the economy, not a single residential upzoning in 10 years. Our focus was on creating jobs and economic opportunity. I'm proud of that record. But 10 years is fine, and I was happy to do it. And I think the only person happier than me when I stepped out of office was Carolyn, my wife, who would always ask me, "Where are you going now, and when are you coming home?" It's a commitment. Don't go in if you're not willing to commit.
Robert, let's come back to the work of NVRC. I want to ask you, the NVRC structure seems to me somewhat unlike a city council structure or even a nonprofit board structure. In those kinds of places, I would say the governing board or the board of directors is advisory. It sets expectations for what they want the organization to achieve over time. But the expectation is that the executive director, the CEO, the top staff person is charged with making it happen. Am I understanding right that NVRC, that the commissioners themselves are representatives of all of the different entities in Northern Virginia? So it's actually within the commission that decisions about regional collaboration and cooperation are actually taking place?
Yes, yeah. Our work plan revolves around collaborative programs that we undertake. And so we have 13 localities, each send representatives to our commission based upon population. And so hence I have 24 commissioners. We work with them on developing our work plan. Here's what our focus is. Here's some new grants that we may be eligible for. This is what we want to pursue, et cetera. And they're representing their localities. And so, yeah, we're really interested in this for, Prince William County, Fairfax County, et cetera. Yes, we want NVRC to lead this program on communicating best practices around clean water because it helps them meet their own goals. They have some regulatory goals that they need to meet, et cetera. NVRC is best positioned to do it at the best possible price. Instead of us trying to do it on our own, we make a small contribution to you, and you then run this program on behalf of the region to achieve this goal. So Clean Water Partners is one of them. We run a solar program, which is essentially a bulk purchasing program, over 1,000 contracts. So the region has a goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. How do we do that? It's easy to vote for a resolution saying, I want to reduce greenhouse gases. How do we do that? NVRC has run now for the last 10 years a solar program that helps people who are interested in solar go solar. And we have now over 1,000 contracts, $28 million in private sector investment. And so, hey, yes, Bob, we as a commission are supporting funding here to help you publicize, solarize Nova in the region to help us achieve our goals. And so my job is to work with the commissioners. They direct me through the budget, what they want to have accomplished. And then I work with our staff to make sure that we're working on the things that they want, the commissioners want accomplished for the fiscal year.
Let's dive deeper into the solar program, if you would. Mm-hmm. So here's what I understand. It's been an incredible success. It added more than 9 milliwatts of new solar?
Megawatts.
Oh, megawatts, excuse me.
Yeah.
And generated $28 million in private sector investment?
Yes.
Can you walk us through how that came together, what that actually means? And in particular, I'm always interested in the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, what did you learn, in the process of accomplishing something so significant?
I mean, well, as I said earlier, the region has these broad greenhouse gas emission goals. All right, so how are you going to get there? We came to them with an idea that we had seen abroad in Germany with a partner organization that we work with, and down in Charlottesville, where they run a Solarize program, which essentially is we work with a not-for-profit that puts out an RFP that works to get the lowest possible cost per watt, which is how solar is billed, and qualified contractors, licensed, insured, et cetera. Because the largest cost that a solar company has, other than their own employees, is to acquire a customer. So we put out information. So we bring the customers to them, which allows them the opportunity to reduce the cost. And our local elected officials have very sophisticated use of social media, their own e-newsletters, et cetera. So, we'll have a couple hundred to more than 1,000 homeowners sign up each year for a campaign to see whether or not solar works for them. And it's a deal between the solar company and the homeowner. We don't get in between. So essentially, we're bringing reduced cost solar to homeowners who are interested. And we've had a lot of success, more than 1,000 contracts now. It's all private sector investment. It's, again, we have no ability to tell people what to do. It's completely voluntary. You want to go solar, you sign the contract with the solar company. And why is it important? One, there's these regional goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Number two, the state General Assembly, the legislature here, passed the Virginia Clean Economy Act, which requires our utility, Dominion Energy, to provide non-fossil fuel clean energy, electricity by 2045. So this is just one effort to help reduce that demand that is on Dominion Energy to reduce their fossil fuel use. And so it's helped homeowners meet their own personal goals, help them save money if that was the case, help them protect the environment if that was their motivation. And it helped the region as a whole, is helping the region as a whole meet its greenhouse gas emissions.
Final question. Looking ahead, what's the strategic plan for NVRC over the next, 10 years or more? Where do you see opportunities for the region? What are the challenges that need to be addressed today that are going to have long-term impact for such a fast-growing, dynamic, and vibrant community?
A big issue that we had identified a long time ago and is coming to fore now is energy demand. Northern Virginia has the highest density of data centers in the world. 100 megawatt data center uses as much electricity as 25,000 houses. We have over 300 data centers, more to come. So we had identified a number of different things that would make data centers even more environmentally friendly than they are now. They have really become more energy efficient, less water demanding. But that is going to be a piece of work for quite some time. The other thing too is Northern Virginia is very defense, the defense industry related. We have a community military partnership program. There's a lot of great opportunity for us to work with our federal partners in solving resilience problems on both sides of the fence line. So, for instance, flooding at a gate at Quantico not only is a problem for Quantico, but for the entire community because it backs up traffic on I-95 forever. So there's a lot of that. And the one issue that we're not involved with, but I think is important, is in the economic development field, is funding, a consistent funding source for the metro system, the subway system that serves Northern Virginia, recently expanded out into Loudoun County. You can't go buy a metro station in Northern Virginia, certainly this piece of Fairfax, without seeing construction cranes. It's really vitally important to the long-term economic health of the region, to the extent that we can be that voice in pointing out the fact that, yes, we're not a transportation agency, but from a land use and environmental and economic development perspective, this is really important to us. We will continue to be that voice.
There's no shortage of work for NVRC for the foreseeable future.
And the work, Matt, has changed. I mean, the work that we did 30 years ago is different than it is today. We were larger staff, a lot of revenue sharing grants from the federal government. That went away. I mean, we were involved in the beginnings of 911 in Northern Virginia, believe it or not, and E911, and the establishment of George Mason University back in the early 60s. A lot of our work today is around energy and the environment, human services, community military, and demographics. We provide a picture of what the region looks at as a whole. We talked about this really earlier. Northern Virginia is, based upon a diversity index that was put out by the Census Bureau, if we were a state, would be the second most diverse state in the country behind Hawaii. We're a place that welcomes people of all faiths, immigrant status, et cetera. And they've been important to the economic health of our region. And it's an important story to tell. We're a majority minority region. And we're proud of the fact that we welcome folks here. We encourage folks to come here and want to see them thrive in the communities that they call home.
That's such an important point that you make. And in last month's episode that was sponsored by Relly, I interviewed Matt Letourneau. He talked very specifically about the responsibility of representing such a diverse population and the efforts, the really intentional efforts that need to go into doing that. It sounds like that's going on throughout the region.
It is. And I mean, we are embarking on a new study coming this year on updating a previous piece of work that we did on the economic impact of immigrants on the region. And it's not insubstantial. It's about 25% of our GDP. It's generated by immigrants in our region. And so, there's a lot of loose talk about immigrants, and it's unfortunate, but they are a vital part of our economy here in Northern Virginia. And we want to make sure that people feel welcome. And it's a positive story to tell. And we will work to tell it.
That will be a conversation that you and I are going to return to at some point in the future. I think that there's a lot to be discussed there. Robert Lazaro, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for having me. And I look forward to that next conversation, Matt.
I look forward to it as well. Again, thank you to my guest, Robert Lazaro, Executive Director of the Northern Virginia Regional Commission. And thank you once more to our episode sponsor, RELI, the Regional Elected Leaders Initiative at George Mason University, for making it possible to showcase the dynamics of regional collaboration in Northern Virginia and inspire community leaders nationwide to apply these lessons in their own communities. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review it on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Your feedback helps others discover the show, and don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. This episode was edited by Nick Living the Dream Tantillo. Our executive producer is John Little. I'm Matt Lehrman of Social Prosperity Partners. If you have a question or a comment about today's topic, I'd love to hear from you. Reach me at 602-688-2724 or Matt, M-A-T-T, at socialprosperity.us. Do you have a story of lessons learned on your journey to leadership? Click the podcast guest link in the program notes. I'm always looking for instructive and inspiring voices to feature on the show. Today's conversation reminds us that impactful leadership isn't just about tackling complex challenges. It's about fostering collaboration and being present when important decisions need to be made and you're facing hard times. Let the example of Northern Virginia and the work of NVRC inspire your leadership journey to build stronger, more connected communities. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with another Community Catalyst.